Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our January 13th DevEd Adult Basic Education Affinity Group. This is our first session of two that are occurring here today and tomorrow, and our, I think, third of the year. Is that accurate? Does that seem right? Yes.
That's correct.
And just to quickly comment, we have a couple more that are planned. You'll hear more of that when we get to wrap up. So I'm going to just introduce myself. I'm Russ Frankel, and I'm a regional transitions coordinator in the Northwest and most recently in the Mid-Central regions of the state. And this particular project for this affinity group grew out of the Northwest region and their interest in these in effective partnerships. And before I introduce Leslie, I'm just going to say, if you've just joined us, please in chat, please indicate your name, your role, your organization, and if you're a first-time attendee, that would be wonderful for us to know.
We're a panelist for today. Let us know that.
Yes. If that's your reason for being here, great. What a great role it is. So Leslie, I'm going to just quickly hand it off to you because we do have an ambitious agenda here and presentation schedule for today. Take it.
Sure.
Take it away.
Well, welcome everyone. For those who are new, I've been working with Russ on this project for 2 years now, and I had worked at the Minnesota State System Office for the last 17 or 18 years of my career. So I certainly know the Minnesota State system a whole lot about it. But anyway, I'm doing some part-time consulting in my retirement years, and I'm delighted I'm very passionate about this topic, so I'll leave it at that. So welcome everybody, and I especially want to welcome all the panelists. We'll get a chance to have you introduce yourselves in a moment. It was kind of an ambitious setup for today because we knew we wanted to get to I'm going to go back to the topic here for a minute. We wanted to really hear from partnerships, ABE and college partnerships, excuse me a minute, in terms of how they're working with students on English, reading, writing, study skills. People have a variety of ways that they express that. And what we're learning is there are a variety of partnerships. They're not all looking the same. It's not all sort of a traditional co-teaching model in the classroom. And so we set out to see who was doing it, and we reached out, and we're so grateful that for all the people we reached out to, they all said, sure. It took a while, and then they found a variety of team members. I think there may be anywhere from 2 to 4 people here per team. Each day, by the way, today, we're going to have 2 teams talking about it, and our format today will be a panel discussion, very different than how we've done straight on presentations in the past. Excuse me. Tomorrow we have a different set of 2 teams, and in a minute I'm going to show you, just in case you might be interested in hearing about the other day's teams. We are recording both meetings, and we'll send out a link afterwards. So I'm going to do probably 2 minutes of updates in another slide, and then we're going to get right into the panel. We've asked each team to describe their partnership, how it works, in about 7 minutes. I know that seems particular, but we are going to give you a little high sign if you're exceeding that. And then after that, Russ will be moderating a series of questions that we have developed that we think would be of interest. So, but before, let me get into just 2 updates. So last year, you may remember, those of you who were here last year, Russ and I submitted a proposal for the Minnesota State Innovation Funding. It's an annual fund, at least it has been. I used to work on the innovation funding. It's kind of funny to be on the opposite side now. I used to be a judge, so I can no longer be a judge. I'd love to volunteer and be a judge, but I can't. So we're going to submit it. It's a $10,000 proposal with the notion that we may be able to seek some matching funds. We're continuing to look at MDE in Minnesota State to see if there are any mechanisms by which they might be able to do some matching funding. And I'm not going to go through the objectives just yet, but it's really to continue the partnership work. Okay. Russ and I actually are going to sit down right after this meeting and go through and fine tune our objectives, what we're going for. So we'll keep you posted on that. And that funding would allow us to continue on and hopefully dig deeper, try to help scale, try to help come up with mentoring groups, maybe study circles, you know, some way to get the message out about partnerships, but more so actually help those who want to get started. So the other thing is we've talked about the toolkit. Last meeting, you gave us great feedback. We've now updated. I didn't quite make the mark of finishing all the updating by January 1st, but I'm about halfway done and it's up on the website, at least they're getting on the website. The preface is done. Chapter 1 is done. I'm in the middle of working on chapter 2, and then we'll work on chapter 3. So I'm making a lot of changes based on all your feedback. So that's it. If there are any questions, I can actually at some point maybe put the website of the toolkit in the chat if you need to. But at this point, it really is time for us to go ahead and get started. I'm going to moderate this part, meaning I'm going to call on you. And then, as I say, if your time is up, I'll first post it in the chat. So who's ever on a team, if you would pull up the chat, I'll put, you know, 1 or 2 minutes left. If not, I'll break in. Because if you don't finish in this first part, I'm sure things will come up as you get to answer on the moderated questions. So we've asked 1 or 2 people to give us an overview, a high-level overview of their partnership and how it works. And when we get to the moderating panel session, anybody from your team can answer. So what I'd like to do is just tell you for today, I'm going to go 1 slide. Tomorrow, we have Mankato Area ABE along with South Central College. And all I've listed for now it would be the point person, the contact person that I was working with. And that was, that was Karen Walters. And then we're also having AEOA and Hibbing Community College tomorrow. And that was Tracy Chase I was working with from Adult Ed, ABE. So for today, I was working with Nadine Hotlaus, or Nadine, I hope is Nadine here? Anyway, Hotlaus, you'll have to, you know, say your name if I didn't say it right, from Hawthorne Education Center in Southeast ABE, and she has a team on hand. And then I was also talking to Penny Yankee from Southeast ABE with Riverland College, and they have a team as well. What I'd like to do is call on number 1 first, the Southeast ABE in Rochester. And if Nadine is here, could you introduce all your team members and who's here with us so that we all know?
Sure. I'm Nadine Holthouse. I'm the program manager for the Rochester Adult Literacy Program. I have my teacher, Leslie Hack, is here with us today, and our RCTC partner, Jeff Lepper.
Okay, well, I invite you to go ahead and give us an overview of your model.
So I'll just give a brief history, and then I'll let Leslie and Jeff kind of talk about the model in more depth. We started, ABE started with Fast Track, Adult Career Pathways with the Fast Track grants. So that was, that might have been 20 years ago. But at some point, after a few years of Fast Track, RCTC received a TAC grant. And that's when our partnership really cemented with RCTC. At that time, we took representatives from ABE and RCTC out to Washington, and we toured the IBEST model. And that's when our Adult Career Pathways and our partnership with RCTC and Workforce too really cemented in the Adult Career Pathways area. So maybe Leslie and Jeff, if you want to chime in about, you know, the nitty gritties of how you're partnering together and the model.
Sure. Well, I'll just start from sort of where our students often start, and that is with the Hawthorne program. A lot of the students will start our class. We have an articulated developmental English class. They start with me, and the students proceed through that class. And then, and so I teach that class, and it is fully articulated with RCTC. And so it's the same basic class that they would take if they were taking it at the college. But they do it at Hawthorne. And then that's those students, when they are ready, and they've taken my class and a few other courses that they may need, they will then transfer to RCTC, and then they join me along with Jeff Lepper in the classroom at RCTC, where Jeff is the RCTC instructor, and I come along with the group. So and then we work with them as in sort of a cooperative instruction, I guess you could call it, where we are both in the classroom at the same time with teaching the English freshman English class, it would be. And then an important component of that is after our class session, we also have what we've termed as writing seminar, which is another hour after the class that gives students a chance to work on their papers and things with an instructor present. And then it might be me, and in this semester, Jeff is in the class, in the seminar with us as well. So let me toss it back over to Jeff. I'm sure I left a few things out, but go ahead, Jeff, from RCTC perspective.
So one of the things is, backing up one step, pre-COVID, I would always go in as well to Hawthorne, because one of the things that Leslie and I are going to talk about probably ad nauseum is the fact that it's all about relationships for us, and that's, cliche and whatever to say, but it's true, and that's how we have really good success rates in our class. The first contact point is Leslie's teaching the class over there. They get, there's a trust level there, and then they invite me in. And I kind of just go hang out for a day during class, and we just chat, and it gets students comfortable, because so many of those students have thought, like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for college, whatever, because I know Leslie's class so well, because I know the curriculum well. It's curriculum we use at the college. Obviously, we have an articulated class, so I know they're ready if they get through his class. I know Leslie's rigor. I know so much about what's happening in his room that by the time they're ready to be done and I come in and they're worried and they want to know what, am I ready to go to the college class? I can confidently say you're absolutely 100% ready to come. But then one of the cool things, then they come, like Leslie said, over cohorted during class. There's a day one sort of comfort level that we've established, because one, they know each other, and even if they're not from the same semester, they've had similar experiences, and they know Leslie, which is a big deal. So I kind of only have to sell them on me. They already have, the Hawthorne model. Most of our students go back to Hawthorne still for help after our class or after seminar, because they're so comfortable with it. But having that aspect of what they're comfortable with already in the classroom at RCTC, they're comfortable, they're ready. So what's happened essentially, and it just sort of happened this way. We didn't talk about it. I sort of take the class session, because I'm the teacher of record, because I'm assigning the grades. I do feel like it's my class in that classroom setting, but it's our, we're together doing it. I'm doing the grading, if we, get down to like the technical stuff, just because if there was ever anything coming back, I want to make sure that I'm saying I assign this grade. With that said, Leslie's jumping in all the time during the class session, and really helping us out in there, and like some stuff he teaches better, so I throw it over to him, and then he's sort of taken seminar, so we each have our role in there, but the students see us as equals and as co-teachers. It's really nice, and it's created a really great community. And I'm not monitoring the chat, so if you're telling me to shut up, you can just tell me. But it's been just great. I actually happened into this role. I'm the chair of the English department at RCTC, and we had the instructor resign halfway through the semester. He had to move away, and I went into this was 6-7 years ago now, and I had to take over the last 8 weeks of the class. And I was totally dreading it and it was going to be terrible and whatever. And then all of a sudden it was like the best thing that happened. And like this partnership and like teaching with Leslie and the students that come over and they're amazing. And they have, you know, all students, their own hurdles that they have to get over. But it's been a really eye-opening experience for me as an instructor, because I was so used to, you know, the Comp 1 model, you know, here's 28 new students, teach them, it's great, whatever. But this has been a different experience. And I think when it all comes down to is the relationship between Leslie and I, first of all, Leslie and the people at Hawthorne, and just like that, you know, that bringing them along step by step. And oh, just one more point before we go on any further. Sometimes students are worried like, oh, this is like a Comp 1 light, like we're teaching it to the Hawthorne students or whatever. It's the exact same course I run. You know, if I'm teaching an hour later, I go in there, same prep, same lesson plan, same text, everything. So it's the exact same class. It's just the model that's different.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks for checking. You must have checked the chat, Jeff. I'm always impressed when people can multitask when they're talking. It's a tough gig.
You know, I can when I teach, but now I felt like, you know, someone will tell me to shut up.
Yeah, I'm good at that, I guess. Well, thanks. And you'll definitely hear more from this team. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the overview from Southeast ABE and Riverland. And I'd like to introduce Penny Yankee. I'm assuming Penny is here. You know, I work with someone named Mike Yankee at the system office, and I've never asked you, Penny, if you're related. In any case, would you go ahead and introduce your team members? And then again, you'll have about 7 minutes for your high-level overview.
All right. Hi, I didn't even know I was going to say anything today. I didn't pay much attention because I just let all my teachers do it. So I'm Penny Yankee. I am the coordinator at Southeast ABE, Albert Lee. So we are a consortium of Albert, like 7 towns. So ours is a little different because like two of the teachers on here, one teaches in Austin and one teaches in Albert Lee. And then the teacher, Karen from Riverland, I don't see her on here. And so I don't know, I just emailed her to see. So how we got started just really quickly is we actually started to do tech math together a couple of years ago, and they wanted to expand it to English prep. So that's kind of how we got started. And I'm really just gonna let Ricky, and so it's Ricky Walters teaches in Albert. Well, actually Ricky alternates all over because it's Austin, Albert Lee, and Owatonna. So we're kind of a complicated section. So Ricky actually rotates to 3 sites, and then Judy just stays in Austin. So it's Ricky Walters and Judy, and I will let them take over because they know more what they're the teachers.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, Judy, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry, I've got a headset on. I wasn't sure. So I'll start. Ricky, you can feel free to jump in, but like she said, I'm in Austin and I actually do both worlds. I do the DevEd math and the DevEd English here with Riverland. We started a couple of years ago with this English, and ours is a little different than Rochester. We actually take the first half of a semester developmental English class. So for 8 weeks, Ricky or I, we are the primary teacher in the classroom. We do work with the Riverland teacher. They pop in and out, but basically we pretty much have the students on our own. It's 0 credit for them and they don't pay for that. So it's a tuition-free DevEd class for them. If they pass our class, then the last half of the semester, last 8 weeks, they would go to another DevEd class, 3 credit. They do pay tuition, and that is taught by Karen, the Riverland teacher, but we stay in the classroom as the support teacher for that last 8 weeks. Along with that, we do a full, what we call a learning lab, and that lasts the whole semester. So it's attached to our class. It's usually a half hour, either before or after, depending on the timing. And that's really when we work with students and help them do their homework. Ricky, I'm going to pass it to you.
All right. See, I think one of the differences, well, there's a couple differences. We teach the same curriculum for Prep 1, that whether it's Judy teaching or me. But with me being on the road, I've got to use ITV. We've got some smart rooms at Riverland that they let us use that are really nice. But there's still that piece that's distance. So I make sure that I travel to every single location and really build those relationships with students, because that in-person piece is really key. So I make sure to do that. I'm also a Riverland teacher. I teach Comp 1 and Comp 2 as well. And so for the ABE classes, I always keep in mind what the expectations are for those Comp 1 students, or if they're wanting to work further into their college program. And so that's been really helpful to me. In that Prep 1, I focus a lot on reading skills. And then when and like Judy said, there's only me in the classroom. And I start them on a writing path by having them do written summaries and doing an essay. So they know the building blocks of all of those and what they need to do. And then with Karen in the Prep Level 2, she really focuses on what needs to happen for that, to make sure that they're completely ready. I function as a collaborative, complementary kind of instructor when I'm in that classroom with her. She does the primary teaching, but then I just offer support. And actually, I find that I really work more as an embedded tutor, so that I can help in the lab time that we have, which is different than Judy's. I spend an hour every single class time with the students. And once I know the assignments that have been given by Karen, then I spend that hour going over with the students. Do they understand? What do they need to know if they don't understand? Making sure their homework's done, because that's an issue. And prior to class starting, I always spend a number of, sorry about the dog, the UPS guy's coming. So Karen and I spent a lot of time talking about what I was going to build into Prep 1 so that it connected really closely to Prep 2, so that they fit together nicely. And I think, Jeff, was that you that talked about relationships with teachers? And I think that's been really key for student success here. Working with other instructors for Prep 1 and Prep 2, and then also working with the Comp 1 and Comp 2 instructors to know what they need, and then just making sure the students know what they need to know. And we do pre and post testing. I do grading and as a ABE instructor. But we also do the pre and post testing, and I found that really helpful to me to see the progress of the students. This was the first time students had asked for that information, so they got to see it as well. But it was really helpful to me to see where they started and where they ended. So I guess I'll end there.
Well, that's wonderful. Penny, did you want to say something about Karen? We're going to end the. Go ahead.
Karen from Riverland is here, so I don't know if you want her to speak on what she's thought or if there's a different spot, but Karen is here, who works with both those teachers.
And what is Karen's last name?
Hi, Karen Kleinwert.
Okay, great. I see it now. Well, Karen, we're going to hold off for a minute, but feel free to jump in on any of the moderated questions. I think if any of it pertains to you, and if it doesn't, we'll make sure we hear from you before we end the panel. Sure. So, well, thank you both teams for. Whoops, but yeah, there you go. You'll mute. Thank both teams. I want to thank both teams for the overview. That's great. I think that gives us an idea. At this point, I will turn it over to Russ to moderate our questions. All of the panelists should have seen the list of the questions in advance, so there shouldn't be any surprises here. And then if you have any questions, we're going to field them all, I think, at the end of the panel questions, just because we have such a variety of questions. Your questions might just get answered during the panel. We've got about 35 minutes. I think we're going to go until 4 o'clock with the panel, the round, sort of round set of questions here. So Russ, go ahead, and I'm going to stop sharing, and we're just going to be able to see all the participants and just have a nice conversation.
Oh, this is wonderful. Well, I'm just delighted. It's just, I'm just always so proud, when I think about how people work collaboratively together on behalf of students. And I heard it loud and clear from each of your initial remarks. So thank you so much. I'm going to get started. And I think, yes, as Leslie mentioned, put your comment, even comments into chat is fine. You might have a question, that's great. You might be holding off, but if you have some comments that you just want to remark as people are kind of saying something and you want to reinforce it or whatever, go for it. This is engagement that we're going to attempt here through this distance platform. So let's just get started with each of the teams, and I would just ask you, what does each side of the partnership, ABE, DevEd, bring to the partnership? What unique sort of characteristics or skills do you bring? And who's ready? Who's just itching to kind of answer that one? Raise your hand and I'll call on you right now. Don't be bashful.
I can get us started.
Thanks, Ricky. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that I have brought, I think that's unique, is that I came to teaching English and writing mid-career, and so I've spent the first half of my career as a social worker, working with people with mental health problems, serious and persistent mental illnesses, behavior problems. And then I was going to change out and do something totally different, but I've always done kind of a combination of things. And I think that's one of the skills I bring with me into teaching English as well. I have the expertise with the writing, but I also have that background in understanding some of the psychological things that are going on with students, their needs there. And so it makes it easier for me to know when to make a referral for some other kind of special helps.
That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you for that, Ricky. And do you have anything to add about the sort of the institutional role, beyond your own personal expertise?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Some of the others probably could have much more to say about this than I do, but I think just the connections between the adult basic ed and the college has been just really important. How that happens, though, I don't have a lot of comment on.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's happenstance, sometimes it's by design, sometimes, it comes a whole lot of ways. All right, how about anyone else from our presenter teams? And, Penny, Nadine, anyone, Jeff, Leslie, jump on in. Feel free.
Sure, I can jump in. In terms of like what we each bring, one of the things is Leslie and I are actually similar, but quite different. And the students really respond to that. In the classroom, I'm probably more of a hard ass than he is. And not probably, I am. And I know that, even though I'm a teddy bear still, but Leslie is super awesome at being sort of goofy and fun and making, awesome, what's the word I'm looking for? Lesson plans with cool PowerPoints that have funny stuff going on. And I'm like, what's the thesis statement? But We work really well. And like, the thing is, and here's what I know this is true. The students know we really get along and they see that, and they see us together all the time. And they know for sure we're there more than we have to be, like I don't have to stay for seminar and I do. Leslie doesn't, in the middle part, he could go scroll on his phone and like, we have a little break between class. But those students, they really see both of us bringing a lot to this, and in times that we don't have to be there. And I think they notice that. And not that I'm patting myself on the back for that, but it's because we want to be there. We like being around each other. And I hammer this all the time. I talk to my dean, I talk to the VP. We don't have any magic bullet about curriculum. I don't teach, topic sentence or thesis statements any better than any other Comp 1 teacher anywhere else. But we're there, and they see we want to be there, and we're just committed to it. So, in terms of what we each bring, I think we each bring a similar level of desire to be in the classroom, because and Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think 6 semesters before I started, there was a different instructor 6 semesters in a row. And that cohesion in the classroom, it was different each semester. And he can, I'll let him talk about that. But since we've been together for so long now, there's just this ease. So I think, what we each bring is we each bring a desire to be there. And, that sounds cheesy, but it's true.
All right. How about Leslie? Is that all accurate, or is he, pulling our chain here?
Completely wrong. No, no, I think it's very accurate. And yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of institutions too, one thing that we do really well at Hawthorne is, and part of it is just having the students there together in different scenarios and different situations, and on this very small campus we have, and we sort of bring that community and we bring that on over to the college. And then, once we get Jeff in there, and then they see, it's like we've got this new person in the picture, but still, since he and I are, getting along as we do, then the students, it just adds to the community, so that we continue to sort of grow the community. And what's interesting too about these students is when they leave the classroom, a lot of them will stay in touch if they are on a similar program, like they'll form study groups together. And it's really a neat thing to see that they kind of continue to work with each other well beyond our English classes together. So and what Jeff mentioned earlier about the other instructors, it is much harder. I mean, I got along fine with the other instructors, but it does take time to build up this camaraderie and this sort of understanding. Like Jeff and I like to challenge each other in the classroom once in a while, and like throw out a question to see if the other person is paying attention well, and so we'll just spring these things on each other. But it's fun, and the students enjoy it too, because they can see that we're having fun. So the whole class, I think, is benefits rather from this relationship that we have together, and then and how they are related from their past experience and moving along through the program.
That's wonderful. Judy, anything to add from your perspective and your experience?
Well, I was going to say one thing I think we bring to the table is with our ABE experience, we understand a different kind of learner. And so many of the community college students are either adults coming back, or they are, right out of high school. And so we have a lot of ELL students as well. And I think a lot of times the community college instructors don't have much experience with ELL or a whole host of backgrounds like we do. And I think we also have maybe more actual teaching instruction, rather than just our content knowledge. We have been taught about differentiation and how to work with different kinds of students and all of that. So I think we bring that. One thing that's unique to us here with Riverland is Karen, the Riverland teacher, used to be in ABE, and Ricky is in both worlds. And I've been around doing this for quite a while. So we kind of have sort of a natural bent. Even when we've worked with other teachers, they've had sort of the ABE kind of connection in the past, which really helps. One other thing in Austin is our ABE classes are actually here on the campus. We rent space at Riverland. So it's a real natural move to just kind of walk people down the hall or whatever. And the campus is so small, we run into our students all the time. So that Jeff said at the beginning, it's all about the relationships. That's totally key. And the community college instructors don't have time to develop those relationships like we do.
Yeah,
And like
got
Leslie
it.
said, that we keep seeing these students in different roles. So we get that relationship.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Judy. Karen,
Yeah,
I don't know if
I want to jump back in
Yep,
just
yep.
real quick to just
Yep.
feedback on what she said. The ELL component that's like Leslie's wheelhouse. So I don't have any background in that or any formal. I've been teaching for 14, 15 years now, but I don't have any specialty in that, and Leslie does. So like when we were talking about like what people bring, I don't know what percentage of our students are language learners, but it's high. And the first semester in there, I didn't know how to do it very well, and he's actually taught me a lot about that too. So like those different strengths that, like Judy was talking about, like being in the ABE program, those things that you see on a regular basis that I didn't necessarily see as much. And then, being able to have someone else to bounce that off, like, okay, how do I deal with this and this? So yeah, I forgot to mention that, but that's been really a lifesaver for me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, I think, Karen, what we're going to do is there's some additional questions. We hope to get sort of some of your perspective and additional questions, but our next one is, how would you describe your level of integration between both parties? So, and we have a scale that we sort of have used, and I think you've seen, that ranges from no integration with college, ABE standalone, to a light integration with ABE embedded in the classroom, to moderate integration, and to a high integration where there's really co-teaching perhaps that is occurring and it's very intentional. So maybe if you could describe from your perspective what level that looks like. It's going to be interesting to see how each of you sort of thinks about what it is, right?
And Russ,
Yep.
I just want to add, I thought of a piece to add to that.
Yeah,
I think they all did a pretty good job sort of describing their integration in their overview, but although we want to hear it again, how did you get to that place? How was it that the instructor, we, for those who are panelists, we've been working on this for a while. We have, a 70-page toolkit. We've heard all the stories, including that often it's difficult, for the college faculty member to understand sort of the value that ABE brings to the table and doesn't necessarily want to co-teach. So, the roles aren't necessarily highly integrated. And we're reticent to use the term ABE on the side, but some in ABE have used that. So I'm curious your level of integration and how you got to such a trust place.
Well, I could maybe get the ball rolling just a bit. When Jeff first started, as he mentioned earlier, he got just kind of thrown into the class. We were halfway through the semester, and the other teacher had moved, and so Jeff came in and picked up and tried to pick up from where we had left off. And it was, it was a little clunky initially, but we got things rolling again. But then when that semester was over, Jeff and I, we got together outside of off campus, and we sat down and we started planning, okay, how are we going to do this next class? Let's talk about it. Let's generate ideas. What should we keep from the last round? What should we bring in new? And, Jeff had ideas from the classes that he had been, teaching at that time. I had ideas, and we just literally sat down and started pounding out how we're gonna teach the class, and what the lessons are going to be, and sort of where we're gonna start from and lead to. And so in that sense, I mean, the level of integration was really high from the outset.
Right.
And then inside the classroom, we would both be, active. And like Jeff said, kind of when we're in the classroom, a lot of it, we kind of say, okay, this is sort of his realm. But I'm always active in there and working with students and if we're broken up in small groups or whatever, I'm also teaching some of the lessons, depending on what it is, depending on our specialties. So there's a lot of that back and forth. And so we have this pretty high level of integration from the very start. And I think that getting off of the campus and sitting down and getting to know each other on a more personal yet still professional level was, I think, really the key to figure this whole thing out for us. Anyway, so
that's great.
I'll stop my commentary there.
That's wonderful. Well, it sounds like there wasn't this sense of a threat, and that you were really student focused. That's what it seems like to me. So how about Karen? It looks like you're ready to comment about something. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna agree with him that the integration I feel with Judy and both Ricky and Judy was very, very high and important. This is my first year at Riverland, so I feel like we had to get used to each other a little bit, but they're right. I think that my previous experience in adult basic ed was really helpful to understand the different paths people take before they land in your classroom. And it isn't always the same kind of instruction that maybe a traditional student would have. So I rely a lot on both of those ladies to guide my instruction too. Maybe they'll point out if something was unclear to a student or whatever, but having 4 sets of ears in a classroom versus 2 is definitely an asset. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
That's great. Okay, so how about Judy? Anyone else that would like to comment about this before we move on to the next question?
I mean, really quickly, I think, one thing that happens is we've been teaching so long, or a lot of instructors have, that it's almost hard to have someone else in the room, and
right,
we'll get I don't know, territorial, or when is the last time most people have had someone observing their class, since
right,
like they were getting tenure or something like that. And for a lot of people, it's been 15, 20 years since anyone else has been in there. So I think there's some apprehension about, am I doing a good job? Is this, am I any good at what I do? No one watches me anymore. So just being sort of vulnerable too, and being like, Leslie, I don't know what I'm talking about right now. You gotta take over.
yeah,
And I would just have to agree with that in the sense of I had never co-taught anything before I started teaching for ABE. And so Jen, the Riverland Dean, offered some training on co-teaching, and I took that and saw the models and saw the descriptions and what did it mean and how could we do this individually. And then with each, I had a different Riverland instructor last semester than Karen, but both times we just sat down and talked about what of those patterns might work for us as individual instructors. And then Karen and I met again outside the classroom prior to starting, and we kept some of that pattern for the co-teaching. And I think over time, though, it adjusts a little bit as you get to know each other and are more comfortable. And I think he's very right. It's very uncomfortable that first couple times that you're the one doing the instruction with another highly skilled instructor in the room. It's just real, makes you nervous until you get to know the instructor well.
Well, Ricky, thank you for those comments. And I think it's a great segue to our next question, because you partially answered it. And this is, has there been campus administrative support for your partnering efforts? You mentioned your dean as an example. So is there anything more that you would add, Ricky, to that based on your particular experience?
Yeah, I both from Penny through ABE and through Riverland, It feels to me like a pretty good partnership. We've had some meetings, administrative. We've had 2 deans at Riverland, Kelly, Kyle, and not Kelly, Kyle, sorry, Kelly, and then also Jen now. And both of them have been pretty supportive and have really believed in ABE being on campus. And I have always, if I've needed something, with me moving around on the 3 different Riverland campuses, I've always felt really supported. If I needed something, I could get tech support, I could get administrative support. Yeah, it's been a real good situation, I think. And I don't know how that connection started, but it's been a good one since I've come on board.
Yeah. And for the rest of you that hear this, I'm interested, we're interested to kind of hear from you if you think that this partnership sort of originated sort of at administrative level, and then you were welcomed into the experience, or sort of grew really more so at a faculty teacher level. So please comment on that as well. Judy, you have anything to contribute at this time?
I've been around for a while, and I think we did have like that fast track grant or something like that. That was a different. I actually worked with an English Riverland teacher in a couple of different, the composition and also a research writing class when I first started. So that's been a while. And then, so there's been different partnerships like that. I think this one in Austin actually came about just through the college looking at their whole DevEd and also their English as a second language program, which they offer at Riverland, just trying to figure out how to streamline that for students so they weren't caught in the DevEd world for their whole 2 years here at Riverland.
Right.
And the English teachers, you know, we had a lot of meetings, and the English teachers came up with one model, the math teachers came up with a different model, and I teach in both, and you know, they both have their, you know, what works for Riverland. And so it's been around a while. There is a summer program here in Riverland too for students coming out of high school, like 16-year-olds to something that's grant funded for, and it's taught by the community college teachers, and the students get their credits and it's free. And so that was kind of part of it as well, is some of those models where they're just looking for help on what's best for students.
Yes. And so you kind of evolve from there, and comfort develops, and then, oh, now let's try this, that kind of thing that comes from it.
Right.
Karen, Jeff, anything more to add?
In terms of administrative support, we get a ton, actually. You know, our class is, I don't know if it's different, but we cohort it. So when it's coming over from Hawthorne, we take it off of the schedule that is open to the public to see. So it's on ISRS still, but we can fill, we hold all the seats. And so the reason we do that is because of the seminar. We want only the students who can commit to being in the class and in seminar. And depending on the semester, you know, we might have 20 students with a normal class, 20, 22, but this semester, for example, we have 12. Now, in any other world, they would have opened that up to the larger population and said, okay, now we're going to fill it because we were looking at fill rates, right? But they kept it cohorted. And because it's important to us, and it's an important program. So we've gotten a lot of support from them at admin, from my experience, and it's pretty substantial because I talk to them all the time about it. They're behind us on it. They see the value of it. Part of that is we run the numbers, we run the data showing that these students are persisting, they're coming back, we're retaining them. You know, if that wasn't the case, maybe we wouldn't get that support, but I think part of it is that follow-up too, knowing we can show you that these students are doing well. This isn't a one semester shot. This is, you know, these students getting through their programs, which is good for everyone.
Yep. And we're going to circle back at some point in time. We might not have time today, but you just brought up a really great point, and that's the measurement piece, the return on the investment, you know, of people's time, to see that it does matter significantly for students, right? And we're not just doing this because for the sake of doing it, we're doing it because we have greater, I'm just going to assume you have data that tells there's persistence in classes, and that completion data is also up as well.
I just wanted to add to, I also have a lot of support from admin, and just at the beginning of the semester, the tutoring center reached out and asked if I had any successful students from this particular program that would be willing to work in the tutoring center. So I think they're recognizing the value of that kind of learner and how they can in turn support other students as well. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Yep.
That's great. Well, we're gonna jump ahead to a couple other questions here, and I'm going to jump ahead to the measurement one to get a little deeper about that with you. And it sort of goes like this: how does your model benefit the student? I think we've started to uncover that, either by way of measurement or studies show, or even anecdotally. If you do collect data, what kind of data? So you started us off on that, Jeff. Is there anything more you'd like to add, or others that would like to kind of reinforce or jump on top of what Jeff has talked about? Go ahead,
Sure,
Jeff.
I can start us off. We have a lot of data. So I've pulled 10 semesters worth, the last 10 semesters worth, and we have our 3-year rolling average is about a 72% success rate in Comp 1.
Yeah.
If you then add in Comp 1 students who have had any developmental, which all of our students have had developmental, it goes down to about 63 to 64%. So all of our students are coming through with some developmental. So you'd expect them, the expectation would be about a 63 to 64%. Our over 10 semesters average is about a 78%. So we're about 14% higher than one would expect.
Impressive. Yeah.
Our persistence rate is about 3% higher than the average of an RCTC student, which again, looking at our population, the expectation would be, it would be much lower. The one area we're lower in, and this is interesting, we're about 19% lower in transfer. And there's a good reason for that. A lot of our students aren't looking to transfer to Winona or Mankato. They live here, they have families here. They're looking to get through their program at RCTC. So one of the ways, and this is the thing, I'm an anecdotal guy, and like, I don't do data, but in order for them to get, leave that class alone and let me keep teaching it, if there's 12 or 17 students in it, I had to come back with this and say, this is working, which is definitely not my wheelhouse, but I was able to do it because I believe in it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that. Other comments from your experience with this measurement side of things?
Anecdotally, I don't know the English numbers, but I feel like it was 60 to 70% passed prior to this partnership and made it to freshman English. And when this last 2 years, Ricky, basically the students who complete the class, almost all of them pass. I know in math, it went from the tech math class, which wasn't DevEd, but I think their numbers were like a 63% pass, and it went to like a 90. So in a year and a half here, our data is pretty good.
Yeah, that's strong, very strong. Okay, so probably enough on that, but you can count on the fact that we'll be back in contact with you because we do have, as part of our Affinity group work, this notion of metrics and measurement, because we recognize that if we're going to continue to create effective partnerships, we want to be able to demonstrate that there is value in these partnerships. So thank you for that. I'm sort of at a stage here. I think maybe quickly, if you could comment if ABE is on campus, actually has a presence on campus, an office on campus, or is that not the case? Leslie?
Oh, there we are. I was trying to find my mute button.
Yes.
No, actually, so yeah, we don't have like an
Yeah.
office per se on the campus. We do have, as far as like a computer lab that we're able to use, and that's kind of like if students want to find me, that's where they come to find me. But yeah, I don't have an office, and in fact, Jeff is on a different part of the campus too. So we kind of meet in this particular area where we teach the class and do things. But yeah, but you know, on the other side of that, it's like we do our best to make sure that we're always open and available to students, that they can easily contact us and things like that. But yeah,
Right.
there's no particular office space though, and
So
we get by without.
I'm gonna chime in a little bit on that. We do have though, we have an RCTC transition advisor that has an office here at Hawthorne and then an office at RCTC, that the students can access her, you know, have access to her at both places. And the teachers also have access to her at both places. So Jeff and Leslie can also, you know, contact her if they're having issues with students. And so she's a good bridge also. So we have that. And then she is also in we have a transition class, a D2L transition class that she is a part of, and then helps the students do their financial aid, their, you know, their application, their scholarship letters. So she gets all that done with an ABE instructor. They do that together in a class before the students then transition out to RCTC too.
Super. Okay.
Austin is fully on campus. We rent
Okay.
space. Our whole ABE program is here. Albert
Oh,
Lee and
got it.
Owatonna are not.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's helpful. So what I'm really hearing through that is you don't have to be on campus to make it work. You know, there are some, you know, maybe added challenges around coordination, hours that, you know, you need to find people, et cetera, for students to know you're there. But you're all highly approachable, you're responsive, and that's what, you know, really matters for students. We're getting close to the end here, but I'm interested to know, and we are, because of where you are today, what's evolving? Like what's new? Are there additional instances, colleagues that are interested in maybe coming on board and doing this as well? What does that look like?
So I make the schedule for the English department because I'm the chair. And yeah, there's interest. And I'm like, maybe next semester, because I don't want to give it up. We don't have enough students to, I would love to run like 5 sections. We don't have enough students. The nice thing is because, and Leslie knows everyone in the English department, because we have had so many people involved in it, the English department is aware of like what's going on with the whole thing. So if we ever needed to expand it or transition, or if I, you know, for whatever reason, I'm not teaching it, we have so many people who can move in and understand what it is. I think for a long time, it was this little corner of the English department that no one really knew about, this partnership that was happening. And now, now it's part of like during our department meetings, we talk about it and like the model and how we've actually, this is interesting. We've reverse engineered the model and are implementing it at the college. So because Leslie's in the classroom all the time as a teacher / you know, whatever instructor, we are now instituting in sections of English where each section has an assigned tutor for the Learning Center that comes into the classroom 4 times a semester. We're just piloting that this semester. So this is an instance where we've seen something that's worked so well with the ABE connection that we're taking it and using it as a college model, actually.
Got it. That's cool. How about
Riverland starting? Oops, we're all talking. Riverland starting to do that as well with the embedded tutors, and it's just new. It's just something that's beginning this year, but I think that's really a nice model.
Yeah, I taught the developmental, and actually as far as bringing new people in. That was a big reason I took the position at Riverland, is because I was able to teach a class like this, both with adult basic ed and then the developmental for Riverland. And the embedded tutor worked well, and again, mimicking kind of what we had set up with ABE. So it was nice.
Great. So here's the challenge, folks, and then we're going to get into if there's any additional questions or chat questions that we want to fold in, and Leslie's going to help with that. But the reason I asked that question is probably pretty obvious, and it has to do with the fact that if Jeff or Ricky or Leslie or Karen or Judy left the equation, what would happen? Would it all crumble? Or is there institutional sort of buy-in and an institutional it's champion at the institutional level versus the faculty or teacher or dean level? You know what I'm saying? So that's probably our next challenge, is to say, how do we move it to that level? If it's really that good, if your data is really that good, and I'm sure it is, how can we be assured that what's best for students continues down the line? So that's kind of a rhetorical question. But Leslie, feel free, if you will, to kind of step in at this point. It'd be great.
Leslie with an EY, I'm assuming.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, Russ is getting to that sustaining question, right? Because we've heard from a number of partnerships already. Yeah, it's only as good as the two people who are really invested in it. Even in the or are, we have a new dean, and the old dean was the one who really supported this, and we're just not sure if the new dean will. So we're always concerned about that. If any of you are inclined to answer, think about it for a second. I have been checking the chat in there. The only one who asked questions was yours truly, and they were both answered. So thank you for that in the chat.
So I can
ahead.
chime in
Yeah.
on that. I think a key piece to keep it strong is to have a employer component to this. So we kind of started out in the English department, but because of the TAC grant had a strong employer partner. And as many of you know from the college, if you have your employers are kind of sometimes helping you decide what classes you may or may not be offering. For us, it's Mayo Clinic has a very strong presence in Rochester, and they have a lot to say with RCTC about, or they have a lot of pull, let's put it that way.
Yeah, the readiness of students for their employment.
For their employment, yes.
Right.
And so I think if you have a strong employer partner that sees the value of this, you're going to get more buy-in from all institutions at a higher level.
But they're not contributing outside of a grant, right? Outside of grants.
Or influence. I'm hearing that their influence.
Well, Mayo Clinic actually financially supports us.
Okay.
And they have huge influence in this model, because they see that it is working well. The students who are coming out from us to RCTC to them are very skilled. They have the skills they want. We're getting them through quickly. And so they hold a lot of power in the community that I think sometimes we forget about.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too about, Nadine, the kind of students that they're seeing that aren't maybe in their workforce at this point in time, right?
Well, Mayo Clinic has said many times the money that they have invested in our adult career pathways, these programs that we have, is some of the best diversity dollars they can spend. They get more from those diversity dollars so that they get a workforce that reflects the community that they are serving.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, super.
So this is our dedicated time, at least another 7-8 minutes, or maybe not, a few minutes anyway. Do any of you have additional questions or thoughts or feedback that you'd like to? And we open it up to the entire group that's here.
Okay, Leslie, just one comment from someone who's been doing a lot of listening. And it's very impressive what they've done. And I think it's a wonderful model. And I keep on thinking, well, we've got you lined up with English, we've got them lined up with math. Okay. Now there's that step between the DevEd and then getting into the degree programs. And I'm thinking, how can we expand this? How can we help our people in ABE prepare for beyond developmental ed or beyond just English and math? Are there other areas that we need to really see if we can promote this model? Because it's working so well and it's such a good set of relationships. It seems that, you know, this, if we can expand it sideways.
Are you thinking partly, Rosemary, that like some of these gateway courses, like if you were to look at Comp 1, this is just me thinking out loud, but where students are still vulnerable, for instance, within that for their academic success, that those places might have room for some type of ABE college relationship. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking, okay, how can we say people who want to go sort of beyond the English and math, yes, they need that. They've got tremendous support in those peer groups. I think that's wonderful. Now, we've got to prepare them to be able to move into the next step. And and the people who perhaps are interested in going into more of the technical areas, or some, for the Mayo people, the medical prep areas. You know, ABE programs are trying to move in those directions, but the way you've got it set up, it eases people so beautifully in. Is there a way that we could look just beyond the programs that you have so beautifully modeled, and then try and develop those models to stretch to other areas within the community college system? And also, would it be, another thought was, well, you keep that cohort together and they support each other. But, you know, in a way, if you let a few of the other students in, they would teach some of your other students an awful lot. There would be that sideways integration. And maybe some of the regular students are meeting a diverse body that they haven't quite met before. And there's such a huge amount of experience there in adult education, where learning not only comes from the teacher down, but from the students to each other.
Yeah.
So we are expanding sideways. You know, we started with English, and well, actually we just currently got math, but we are actually in our different career pathways, our bridges programming. We do this similar model in some of the healthcare classes and in some of the administrative office classes. And we also are partnering with Mayo School of Health Science for their phlebotomy. And we're just now working with their pharmacy tech.
No, that's perfect. And I mean, you're there on site at Mayo. Mayo desperately needs a workforce expansion. They're looking for people. Here you are, you're about to provide them with a nice stream of potentials. And so many. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rosemary, I know in talking all around the state to folks, there have been a few other models expanded to. I thought somewhere in the Northwest, there was one that was being tried with auto mechanics. But I think, didn't Riverland have one with the nursing program?
I think they used to, and there are some like CNA prep kind of things. There used to be something with like chemistry, and I don't know if Penny's still on. She would know better than me.
So Penny can say it, but so as part of the Bridges to Healthcare with Rochester, we got appropriations dollars from the legislation. And as part of that money, we needed to help expand that model out into the region. And so now this year, that they're doing a Bridges to Healthcare model with some appropriations dollars, some extra appropriation dollars that they got to help us expand that model out.
Cool.
Right, so that also includes, so CNA, but then it also medical office, licensed practical nurse, and one more. I mean, so yeah, we definitely are expanding, and we actually, our math class actually is a 1020, and it's so it's not a developmental ed class. It's
Right.
Students who are becoming electricians,
Exactly.
different things. So actually our math class is not a developmental class.
No, well, you see, I've worked so much with construction trades. So I automatically think, and then in the medical area, we've got so many new immigrants, and very often there isn't the word in their own language for the medical concepts you're trying to teach them. And so that preparation becomes vital.
Mhm. Well, great concepts. I think I should probably jump in just because I'm looking at the clock.
Right.
All that we wanted, well, so one, thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for your time and dedication for looking at the questions in advance and being here. So Russ put up the applause icon. So thank you so much. For those of you who might want to join this affinity group who are new today, if you're a panelist, all you need to do is email Russ, and Russ, you might want to type your email in the chat. And then we do have a site. I'm going to share it for everybody. Let me just pull it up. It's a OneNote site. And if you tell Russ that you want to join the affinity group, and you can actually copy me too, I can put mine in the chat. I have to give, this is not an open site, so I just have to give you permissions to access the site. But this is where we're putting all the meetings. And this is a good time for me to let you know that after our January meeting, we still have 2 more meetings of the affinity group left. We offer each meeting a similar agenda each time so that you can pick the meeting day that works best for you. So we've got one on March 3rd and 4th. And again, the same time frames as like today and tomorrow morning. And then finally, we have one, we had to split these up by a week due to a conflict in schedules, April 21st or April 29th, and you can pick. And then what I do for each meeting is I put the agenda and then some brief notes. So after today's meeting, I mean, this is what the meeting was about. We'll put the recorded sessions up here as well if you want to look at them. And I'll put in some brief notes and certainly list the panelists that were on hand today. So with that, I think we should probably close. Russ, I'll leave the last minute for you.
Oh, no. Well, thank you. I would concur. Just a wonderful day, hearing from some excellent collaborators. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just have just a whole lot more people who had this sort of desire to do this kind of work on their behalf. And so I think our challenge, for us is to really get these metrics kind of put together. I mean, get people to sort of take a look at the toolkit that Leslie mentioned at the very beginning. And then maybe we create some sort of, simple mentoring process where people can find out from teams like you, really, how'd you do it? How are you doing it? And know that they're going to have some support to try this work, because it's bumpy, but it's also super rewarding to do it. So I want to just thank everybody for coming today, and And for all of you to know that we do have a couple additional people who are on board tomorrow. If your schedule is open, it's the
Yeah.
same link. It's the same link you got today. And it's from 10 to 11:15 a.m. Rest assured, if you can't, we'll be getting recordings out to people, as Leslie mentioned, so that you can look in on that resource as well. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording and wish you a great remainder of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
So long, everyone.
Bye.